Very much for that, Chris Valence. And let's continue this conversation now, because joining us is technology researcher and co-host of AI Decoded, Stephanie Hare. Stephanie, good to see you as always. And just picking up on that last thought that Chris was making, Mustafa Suleyman seems to be saying, there's a danger that ethics is going to get lost in the rush to be first with the next developments in AI. Do you see that as a very real and present danger?
I think it's more tricky when you have AI leaders such as Mustafa Suleyman, and he's by no means alone in this, on the one hand telling us to be scared and we should be worried about losing ethics, and on the other hand, they water down and fight every effort to regulate or legislate AI. Right? And we see this all the time. They think it's somehow going to hinder innovation. And if that argument doesn't work, they say this will allow China to win. So I'd love for them to actually tell us what it is that they want, what their ideal world for AI development is, because it's not very actionable. Telling people to be scared in a healthy way, what are you supposed to do with that?
A very good point. How significant then is it that it's Mustafa Suleyman saying this?
I guess I would just pull back and say it's been 3 years now since ChatGPT went on the scene publicly for most people around the world. We've had generative AI, and we really haven't moved beyond this discussion of generative AI is going to change everything. It's more important than fire and electricity, and we should be super scared of it, and we need to regulate it hardcore. The debate has not moved in 3 years. That's what I think is really interesting. And that tells me that we haven't really found really good use cases. Companies around the world are still experimenting with this technology. Unless you're a software developer or making films, or there's edge cases where it's useful and helpful for productivity. But for most people, if you go onto the main street in any town and any country around the world and ask them if AI is changing their lives, most people would probably still say no.
Yeah, so maybe it's it's overblown. That's certainly a question to be asked, and yeah, that leads me on to ask you, how much of a gap is there between these AI bosses and what they're talking about and what they're doing, and the regular person?
I mean, I think this is what we're going to be looking for in 2026 is, where is the return on investment? An enormous amount of money and, frankly, media attention has been poured into AI. What we need to start seeing and surfacing are, where are the really good use cases? Where does it boost efficiency and productivity? Where is it hurting jobs? And also, where is it not? AI gets blamed for a lot of things and destroying jobs when actually it might be Trump's tariffs or really bad economic growth across the G7 since the pandemic, right? But it's easier to say AI than to admit policy failures. So I'm hoping that we're going to get a bit more sophisticated and nuanced in our analysis and discussion of AI, and not just keep going, it's wonderful, it's scary.
Yeah, let's dig into that. How do we get to that point? Because, it just seems like there is this big notion out there, Stephanie, AI, we need to be really worried about that. We need to be worried about whether it's going to take lots of people's jobs, and what do they do instead? How do we inform and educate people so that they can have meaningful discussions about that, and sort of connect them up with the discussions that people like Mustafa Suleyman and other tech bosses are happening? Because, as you say, there does seem to be quite a gulf there.
Yeah, so I think on the one hand, it's a case of, at the very international level, do we need treaties? And that's been discussed at the United Nations, for instance. Within countries, there's a discussion about how to regulate. So that's happening with your members of parliament, your elected officials. In the US, they're pushing back against that because, again, they're trying to make sure that they win this so-called AI race. Like here in the UK, we're not going to be regulating AI anytime soon. So then you go down into the organizational level, your employer, your company, maybe your government, your schools, if you're a civil servant, and you're experimenting with different tools. So maybe you're using Copilot to help organize your life. And you yourself, as you start to experiment with it and inform and educate yourself, you have to make a call. Is this making you more productive and improving your life, or is it a waste of time? And that's what I mean. The proof will be in the pudding. Eventually, we move beyond the marketing hype of this technology, and we start seeing, where is it useful and where is it more trouble than it's worth?
Okay, Stephanie, thank you very much. And of course, a reminder that people can watch you on AI Decoded too for lots more education on the subject. Stephanie Hare, good to see you. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Around the world and across the UK, this is BBC News.